Hi, everybody. I'm watching this right now and seeing some video of me getting ready to turn it on because of this lag that I still don't quite understand. Now I'm getting ready to talk, and I'm looking. It looks like I'm clicking something. I look very sleepy, and now I'm talking. Okay, that's the way it goes. And so excited to have you here. So excited to have Sherry here. Sherry is here, everybody, and Melissa, and who knows who else. It says two, now it says three. Maybe there's thousands. Who knows? Who am I to say? I'm just me. Um, I think there's some nobility in even though the four, see, 25% increase. Um, so even though, you know, I remember hearing about a show that the Police gave one time, the band The Police, and three people showed up for their concert. And so they just, in between songs, they made sure everybody introduced themselves to one another, which seems like a healthy thing. Um, all right, so Stephanie Wittels Wachs was on the show this week, and I structured it more as a conversation than as an interview. And I was a little trepidatious about doing that because part of what I'm trying to figure out in the course of doing this show is what my role is, because it seems like we don't want to do a show, we meaning me and everybody who tunes in and downloads and does all that. We don't want a show where I'm like a complete non-entity just asking some questions. It's Depresh mode with John Moe. You want me in there to some extent, but we also want to feature the guest. So I kind of wonder, well, how much of what I say should be in there? How much of if I've said something about my life before, do I repeat it in this context? I don't know. Um, so I'm just winging it. I'm winging it all the time. I'm also trying to sweat the edits a little bit less because on the old show at the old place, every fussy little bit would be stewed over by me and a team of producers and editors. And it made for good shows, but it's not sustainable when you're doing a show every week in perpetuity. So I'm trying to give it a little bit looser of a feel. But let me know. Let me know what you thought about that. Let me know if you have any questions about this week's show with Stephanie. Stephanie's somebody I had heard about for a long time, years before I ever met her, because she is the co-owner of Lemonada, which is a podcast studio that is based here in the Twin Cities. And in fact, it's where my former producer on my old show now works. Chrissy Pease works over there on Andy Slavitt's podcast and a bunch of other podcasts. So I kind of approached Stephanie closer and closer, and then I had some, got to know the people who ran Lemonada better during my hiatus, and then finally, this was my first taped interview with Stephanie. We've had some other conversations, and it was interesting to me how our brothers were such different people, but had such similar experiences. And it was sort of in response to a question that I've gotten a lot of, which is, what do, can you do a show about what it's like to live with someone with a mental illness? So in this case, it was addiction. We do intend to do some other shows about living with a spouse or a partner or a loved one, family member with other conditions. This one was in particular about addiction because that's what was available. That's what was going to be a good conversation. But we do intend to do more as we figure out how we go. This one was short on answers. I don't tend to be prescriptive anyway about the shows. I don't tend to say, well, here's what you should do if you're dealing with OCD. This is the right way to handle it, because I'm not much of a believer in right ways, and I'm not qualified regardless because I'm an interviewer and not a psychiatrist or therapist. So next week, we're going to have Megan Devine on the show. And it's interesting. I was reading a book by Anna Sale, and Anna is the author of Death, Sex, and Money, which is a podcast from WNYC about the things that we dare not talk about. So it's a whole show about those topics. And Anna kept bringing up Megan Devine, who I just knew through Twitter. So small world of people talking about tough subjects. Megan is an expert on grief. She's written a book called It's Okay That You're Not Okay. And so we talked to her about the grief issues that got brought up in my talk with Stephanie, because here's what I keep wondering. Like, it's so... Oh, 6? Well, geez. Let me go get some extra chairs. The process of grief, I don't even want to call it a process, because it's the experience of grief. Process makes it sound like there's a beginning, middle, and end. Can feel so much like insanity to me. When I was in a period of grief once, I drove my car, absent-mindedly drove my car into a big concrete pillar in the basement parking lot of a library in Seattle. And I wasn't trying to hurt myself. It was just like I was spacing it and didn't notice the pillar that I drove into. And so I've always thought, is the experience of grief something like the experience of going nuts, if I may use a medically imprecise term? Or is it like insanity, to use another medically imprecise term? And it makes me think, well, what is it to be not sane then, if that's the case? Like, I didn't feel moored to the traditional world that everybody else seemed to be walking around in during periods of high grief. So does that make me crazy? Is, to use another medically imprecise term. Megan's whole thing is no. Like, you're going to have the experience you have. She's going to talk on next week's show about the DSM, the psychological manual, saying that if you're still experiencing intense grief after 6 months, then you have a prolonged grief disorder or complex grief. Like, there's something wrong with you. But it's a reminder, too, that most of the time when the word disorder gets used, it just means that there needs to be a term so that that person can get treatment and have it be an insurance matter. So you could put in a claim for insurance because you've got a disorder. It's a health disorder, so you can get treated. You can get talk therapy. You can get meds if you need them. And then it's a shorthand if you go from provider to provider and you've got prolonged grief disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder. You know, it's like Pokemon. You know, if you've collected all these things, then you've got, then you can, enter them into battle or something. It's not like Pokemon, I guess, but perhaps you know what I mean, or perhaps not. Who am I to say? So that's going to be next week. And her whole thing there too is like, it's like, pain is pain, grief is grief. The thing that you're feeling is the right thing to be feeling. You're not necessarily disordered. Maybe you need some counseling, maybe you need some help, but there isn't a brink to go over. If you're feeling intense, prolonged feelings over losing someone close to you, that's often a sign that you're doing okay. You got to get them all. DSM, intrusive thoughts. I choose you. And then you throw them into the ring, and then they come filtering in from all sides of the ring, even when you don't want them to. I feel like Sherry's becoming a bit of a co-host. Hi, Sherry. I'll play that Steve Perry song next week. Unless maybe you hate it. I don't know. Sherry, do you hate the song Oh Sherry by Steve Perry, or do you claim it as a source of pride? Personally, Three Stooges jokes with Mo, never been so crazy about him. Never been so happy about him. Anyway, so I read Anna's book where she mentions Megan. And then Anna is going to be an interview in the future. which was a really cool experience. She's got this great book, um, Let's Talk About Hard Things. And I had the wonderful experience of discovering that this person who I've been a fan of for a long time because of Death, Sex, and Money has been a fan of the work I've been doing, which is such a warm feeling. So yeah, that's coming up down the line. We've got Easy Crafts for the Insane, speaking of medically imprecise terms, with Kelly Williams Brown. That's coming up down the road as well. And then a talk with Joel Kim Booster, who is a comedian. And that was an extraordinary conversation that had a lot of surprises to it and was very, very difficult. But I think it's going to be a good show. So that's all coming up down the road. I am going to the Pacific Northwest in July. Maybe we could do like some sort of meetup, greet up thing in the Northwest now that we can see other people. Not like dating, but be in proximity to other humans. So I'm going to go down to Portland. I'm going to get the double tragedy tattoo that I talked about during the Max Fun Drive. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, that's what's coming up. I think, did I show you guys? I don't have it down here. I did get the Korean copy of the book of the Hilarious World book. So you can see the cover art of that on Depresh's group on Facebook. So that's pretty cool. Sherry's reading Easy Crafts for the Insane. I got to admit, like, I blurbed it. They approached me to blurb it, to put the little endorsement blurb in there. I said yes, based entirely on the title. And then I was fortunate that it was a really good book besides. So, okay, well, we're rocking here. We've got Braden, Melissa, Sherry, of course. It's happening. It's all happening, folks. So I'm going to hop off so I can start editing a really great eating disorder episode that we had. I'm never far from disorders, which makes me the most orderly person in the world when you think about it, when you don't think too hard about it. All right, so that's all. I'm going to try to time this out so I don't cut off in the mid-sentence. So as soon as I see myself look forward, I'm going to end it.